Okay, so let's make a start. Hi everyone, my name is Adam. I am one of the careers consultants as part of the careers team. And this session, we're going to focus particularly on internships and other types of work experience and how you can find them. It is not going to be by any means an exhaustive guide because it can't be, okay? But what we're going to do is talk around the broad principles of work experience, a few of the things you can do to find them, including things like a little bit of networking. And the idea of this is to give you the tools to then go and find some internships and work experience for yourselves, okay? So first thing I'm going to get you to do, if you could just scan that QR code for me, this will allow me to get attendance for this session, which for us, kind of useful, and it'll let me send you the slides. If you don't manage to do this, you will be able to get the slides at some point, but it is going to take quite a bit longer. So just make sure you do that to ease everything, basically. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to do that. I will show this again at the end, so if it doesn't work for you immediately, you don't have your phone to hand, whatever it might be, you'll get the opportunity to scan this at the end, so don't worry too much, but we just like to start as we mean to go on. Okay, so let's make a start then. Now, you might be sat there, you might have a very good idea of why you want to do an internship or get some work experience. On the other hand, you might not. The way I talk about it is that when you come up to apply or interview for anything, whether it's work experience or a graduate job further down the line, you need what I refer to as ammunition, okay? You need things to be able to talk about, whether it's interview stage or application, to evidence your skills. This is what it's all about, right? Skills. And in order to give that evidence, you've got to talk through examples. That really is what I mean when I say ammunition. You need things to talk through. Now, work experience is great for that. Any kind of work experience. It's not the only thing, and I will be touching on that a little bit later. There are other things you can do to get that ammunition, but it is quite a big thing and one of the easiest things that people find they have to talk about. And there are a number of things that you could do over your time at university to get that work experience, and I'm going to sort of tackle it year by year. Okay, so some of you in the room are going to be first years, some second, some final, it might be PGT. There's going to be something in all of this for you. But what I would say is we're going to tackle it year by year just so we kind of cover off all of our bases. So before we get to that, the thing to think about is, I guess broadly speaking, right, what do employers want? Now, they want a few different things. And the thing that we start with, your academic attainment, I kind of call that your starting point. It's the other stuff on top of that that will make you stand out. We get that question a lot. How do I make myself stand out? Your degree is not really the thing. It's your starting point. You'll be competing with other people, most of whom are going to have similar qualifications to you. It's your other stuff, your relevant skills, your work experience, and that kind of commercial awareness. And when I say commercial awareness, what I mean is an understanding of the jobs you're going for, an understanding of what those jobs entail, and an idea of the industry you want to work in and how it works. So it's all of this stuff that's going to help, which is why work experience is so important. Because, like I've already said, it's an easy thing that you can talk through. It's the thing that you can think, okay, I've done that and I did it here. And it gives you that level of commercial awareness. You start to understand how different jobs work, how different employers work potentially. So that is why we kind of focus in on work experience quite a bit. Now, imagine you're in first year. Like I said, there's a number of things that you can do. This is just one of them. It tends to be the most popular. Spring internships. These are professional experiences for first years, and usually speaking, there are 1 week during the Easter break. So not the whole Easter break by any means, 1 week. They're in lots of different sectors. I've just put a few up on the screen there: banking, consultancy, law, accountancy. So they're in all sorts of sectors. And it is not by any means the only thing that you could do while you're in first year. It's not the only thing that you could do that would be valid. However, it is a good example of the kind of thing that you can look at. For these sorts of experiences in first year and all sorts of others, we have a link on our website. And like I said, you'll get these slides, so don't worry too much about copying down the links. But we have all sorts of resources on our internships page on our website for spring internships, but also the other things I'm going to talk about. The other website I really would recommend is one called Student Ladder, which is again on the screen there. That is where you'll find a lot of internship opportunities. It's very similar to, if you have watched my job hunting series, the student job website, again, kind of does what it says. You'll find a lot of internships, certainly all the sort of big ones on that website particularly. So that's first year. What I would suggest, we don't necessarily need you to think and know exactly what it is you want to do once you graduate in first year. That's not what we're after. But it's a good idea to start thinking about it and start getting some experience under your belt if you can. Things like internships are helpful, but also part-time jobs, really helpful, Christmas jobs, summer jobs, all sorts of things that can just, like I say, give you that ammunition, give you that stuff to talk about. And as you are trying to figure out what it is you want to do, it can be helpful. Even if you do something and decide, no, absolutely not for me, I hate it. It will still give you a steer, because you'll think, well, okay, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I know I need to avoid this. Next, summer internships. Now, again, this is for second years, mostly in the second year, not the only thing that you could do by any means, but there tend to be quite a few of these opportunities just off the top of my head. BBC have one, for example. This is a professional experience for 6 to 8 weeks over the summer period, and it's in quite a lot of different sectors. So again, I'd suggest look at our website, and I'm going to talk about some other ways that you can find these things. This is when the second year is when you are kind of, hopefully, in our eyes at least, you have a bit of a steer of the kind of sector, the kind of industry you're interested in. And then you might think about the employers, whether they're big employers, small employers, and then try and target those and think what kind of professional experience, what kind of internships are on offer in my sector. Now, if you're in second year or in final year or in PGT and you're really not sure what it is you want to do, don't worry too much. What I would say, and I'll talk about the support on offer later, come and see us. We can help with all that sort of stuff, whether it's, I know what I want to do, but I'm not really sure how to get there, or maybe you'd, like I've just described, I have no idea what I want to do. We can help with all of this. It's also a good idea to have a look at our own website for what we call student experience internships. These are internships that the university offers to students. Can be quite competitive, but still definitely worth applying. And these are internships that run while you are a student, so alongside your studies. I'm not going to go into massive detail about how these work because it's a different team that administer them. But broadly speaking, the way it works is you get something like a number of days a month. It's paid as a full internship. It's quite a lot of high-level experience. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, have a look at our website, and we link out to the SEI programs. Okay. And then this, I guess, kind of goes on to not internships, but broad work experience. Summer jobs. This is what a lot of university students will do once they, not necessarily graduate, but once they have that gap over summer. The thing for me, okay, is any kind of work experience is valid. So we get a lot of questions about, I want some like part-time work, or I want some internships or experience in my sector. And just as an example, that sector might be media, it might be, I don't know, something STEM related, so science, technology, and depending on the sector, there might just not be that level of experience available. because you need to be qualified to a certain level to do certain things or whatever it might be. That does not mean that you are stuck, because anything is valid, any kind of work experience, anything can be that ammunition. It's more about how you articulate that, how you make whatever it is relevant. So when I started at the top, I talked about skills particularly. Imagine you're going into interview or you're applying to a job. They are not going to just say, tell us your experience of whatever it might be. Tell us your experience of the media industry. That is not how it works. What they will ask is what we call a competency-based question. This is more along the lines of, give me an example of a time you've demonstrated strong team working skills or strong communication skills. Now, work experience is obviously great for that, because you can say, in my previous role or in my internship over summer, did this, etc. However, you will be using those skills in any kind of job. So in communication, for example, yes, you can use those in a graduate level internship, but you can also use communication skills in your part-time retail assistant role, as an example, in your volunteering, as an example. So anything can be made relevant. So even if you're looking at getting some experience and you think, well, it's not in my sector, doesn't mean it isn't valid. This is why summer jobs can be really useful, because you could get a summer job maybe if you've moved back home for the summer doing basically anything, and it's still potentially relevant to the kind of job you want when you finish. It's one of the questions we get quite a lot. I see students who say to me, I don't have any experience at all. And then I probe a bit and then, well, I've worked every summer for X company, but it's not related to the role as I'm going for. And I have to say, well, no, actually, you can make it relevant. And there are other things as well that I'll talk about later in the session that you can make relevant and really stand out. Now, there are potentially bursaries on offer from the university. These are called work experience bursaries, work experience payments, basically. Now, you do have to apply for these, and it can cover things like travel costs, accommodation costs, depending on what the work experience is. Now, I can't go into massive detail because it varies so much by individual circumstances, but what I would say is have a look at the link that I'll send you in these slides and get a sense of what these bursaries are and what they're available for. Because it might be that you want to work in a sector where there isn't so much work experience, so much paid work experience, and you think, well, can't really do that. We might be able to help with a bursary. So have a look at things like that. Now, that's sort of an introduction to what you could do. And like I said, there's all sorts of other things you could do, but it is kind of up to you to find it. The first thing you should look at is the Careers Service website, and I'll post a QR code to this later on in the session. But we have a ton of resources. We actually have our own roles, which we host through Career Connect, which hopefully you've all seen. If you saw this event, you'll be able to see that through Career Connect. Everything that we're aware of goes onto our website and onto Career Connect. So that should be, I guess, your first part of call. And when I talk about looking for jobs, what I talk about is, I call it creating a rotation of activity, which is basically means every day you want to be doing something slightly different. So you might start with the Careers Service website, then you might go on to prospects or student ladder or target jobs for the next day, and then rinse and repeat. You need to be quite proactive in your job search, in your search for experience, and every day do something slightly different. On top of that, also think about the other things that you are doing. I've already kind of alluded to this, but work experience is great. Other things are valid too. Volunteering is something that a lot of people do and just don't think anything of because, it's just something I do in my spare time, as an example. Volunteering looks really good on a CV, on an application, and it gives you a lot of these skills. It gives you that ammunition. You can definitely talk about the volunteering you've done in an application or in an interview. Same with societies that you're part of. Okay? Any potential passions or hobbies, you could absolutely talk about that, your extracurriculars, your sport. So yes, work experience is great, and I would always suggest trying to find some. But if you put everything into it and don't find any at the end, please don't feel like you have nothing to talk about in these interviews and applications. And doing some of these can actually help you get that full work experience as well. A good example actually is volunteering. A lot of third sector organisations, what we call third sector, so charities, non-governmental organisations, they do a lot of their recruiting for things like part-time work and internships through their volunteers. They will go to them straight away. They'll go to them first. With societies as well, they can have links to external organisations. So the Consulting Society, for an example, will often get companies in to do a talk. It looks good for them, right? And that is where you could potentially find some opportunities. So it's always worthwhile having a look through these things. Now, here are a few of the resources that I've already mentioned and that I really would suggest using. I've already talked about Student Ladder, and I mentioned Student Job as well. Student Job does something similar. It's a website devoted to students looking for roles. Internships are on there, but also summer jobs, placements, and full graduate jobs. So I really would suggest adding this to your rotation. Rate My Placement kind of does what it says. That's mainly placement focused, but you can find lots of other things as well. And the two big ones that I always suggest are prospects and target jobs for slightly different reasons. So prospects, which I will show you on the screen. Prospects is a website that serves primarily as a sort of information archive for students and graduates, but it's incredibly useful because on there it will give you what's called a job profile. This one I've put on the screen is the job profile for accounting technician. Here it will talk to you about what to expect in the job, what the job actually is, which you might not be too clear on, or you might have some misconceptions about. It will also talk to you about the skills that you need. So here you can almost give yourself a checklist. I want to be X. Do I have the skills that it's talking about? Can I evidence these, or do I need to do some work? But the key thing for me on job profiles is if you go down to the employers section, which you can see on the right hand side, this will tell you who's going to employ you and where to find those roles. And it also has a work experience section where it will talk about the kind of work experience you need to get into this kind of role, what would be helpful, and again, where to find those opportunities. So this should definitely be something you look at, sort of in addition to our website. You go onto our website, then have a look at this, see what it's telling you, where it's pointing you towards. Okay, and then we've got Target Jobs. So Target Jobs is, I think, the biggest graduate job website in the UK. Certainly was last time I looked, a couple of months ago. And there are graduate jobs on there, but if you see top left, there's also internships for some of the bigger organisations. So again, if we're talking about your rotation of activity, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to go on there. Okay. Now, the other thing that I would suggest you do, I've already kind of alluded to it a little bit. You need to be as proactive as possible when looking for these things. So that active rotation of activity, that's part of it. It's not the only thing that you should be doing. You should hopefully be doing a little bit of what I would call low-key networking. So as part of your rotation, some of it's going to be spent looking for advertised opportunities online. Some of it's going to be spent doing a bit of volunteering. What I would suggest, hopefully you're on LinkedIn. If not, that's part of your homework. Get yourselves on LinkedIn and connect with a few different people and use that to do a little bit of networking. And when I say networking, I do not mean just going round to people, connecting with loads of people and asking for a job. I actually saw a post yesterday from someone who posted that and said, do not do this. What you want to do is connect with some interesting people, some people in your sector, the sector you're interested in, And when you're connecting, don't ask for a job straight away, but explain your situation. Say you're interested in their sort of sector or interested in their company or whatever it might be. Do they have 5 minutes just for a quick chat? Maybe you can ask their advice. You'd be amazed how much more open people are to having that discussion, sorry, that's me, rather than just saying, sorry, we don't have any roles available. Because if you just ask for a job, even if they are really helpful and really want to help you, if they don't have anything available, then they can just say, no, sorry. And then that's the end of the conversation, right? That's not networking. What you want to do is get them on the phone, over Teams, whatever it is, over Zoom, and then ask questions. This is where I want to get to. How could I get there? Do you know of any work experience? Did you have any work experience yourself before you got this role? Can you point me in the right sort of direction? When did they recruit? How did they recruit? All these sorts of questions that would help your actual job search. Now, out of that, it might be that they have something available that will come up sort of naturally. And if they don't, they might know of someone else who does. It's that kind of way of keeping it as open as possible. Now, that's a very short introduction to networking. As you can see on the screen, we do have some dedicated pages on this. And on our YouTube channel, there's actually a sort of networking for beginners guide that I would suggest you have a look at. Because there's a little bit more nuance to that, but it really is valuable. And if nothing else, you get quite a lot of helpful information for when it comes to actually applying for things and finding roles. So give it a go. You never know what could happen. Now, I've already sort of alluded to this, but like I said, there's lots of other ways to gain experience and all of it's valid. I've already mentioned things like the volunteering and the student societies. I've known lots of students who have got roles that are completely unrelated to their degree, and they did it because or through their student society that gave them experience. An example might be you want to work in radio, just off the top of my head, you were part of the student society for radio at the university, kind of fits, right? So if you're not doing something like that, doesn't mean you absolutely have to, but think about it. Could this help? Volunteering is very similar. And then any sort of work experience can be really useful. Part-time work doing anything is great if you can get it. And we can help with that, obviously. We help with applications, we help with interviews. So if that's something you're interested in, come and have a chat with us. But even something like starting a business, setting up your own blog or a YouTube channel or whatever it might be. Sport is another one. That can be really helpful to give you things like teamwork and communication. Think of it as less like I don't have any experience, but what am I going to use when I'm asked for X skill? Do I have a strong example ready for that? Reframe it in your mind. And if the answer is no, okay, where can I get that example from? What could I do? Try and reframe that I don't have any experience to this is how I evidence those skills. Which leads me to wrap up to an extent, everybody. So I've talked quite a bit about our website. This is what it looks like, and there's the QR code for it. We have loads of resources, like I said, on all the bits at the top. So the Which Career section, where we talk about different roles and how to get there, what's involved, jobs, work experience, applications, lots of resources, and you can then find the ability to book onto appointments. Whether it's full careers meetings where we talk about what it is you want to do, how to get there, or more like application reviews, interview simulations, which are mock interviews, all these kinds of things which you can access mainly through Career Connect and the other events as well. We are also available without appointment. So this is the atrium. This is where my team are based. We operate a sort of inquiries desk where you can just come to us, ask any sort of question. You don't need an appointment. We might point you in the direction of another part of the service, whether it's appointments or events or whatever. But if you just want a quick chat with a human, you want to ask somebody something, come and see us. We're open in the atrium between 10 and 4 every day, and we're really friendly. Just come and have a chat. Which, ladies and gents, brings me to the end. So I did flash this up at the start. This is the attendance slide. If you did not get a chance to scan that, if you could do that now, this will mean that I can send you the slides pretty quickly. You'll get those towards the end of the week. I will give you a second to do that. And then the last thing I'm going to ask you guys to do before we finish, and I'll take any questions you guys have, is if you could just scan this last QR code for me. This is the QR code to our feedback slide, feedback survey rather. If you could just take 30 seconds to fill that out, we'd be really grateful, just to get a sense of, are we pitching these at the right sort of level, at the right time? How did you find them? We are quite responsive to feedback. I know everybody's going to say that, and I'm sure you're completely fed up with the number of feedback surveys you get asked to fill out. We are quite responsive to this, and what we're doing this year is kind of a direct response to the feedback we got last year. So if you do have the time, we'd really appreciate it. Once you have done that, ladies and gents, that is pretty much it from me. I will stop the recording now. Thank you very much for coming.